I love it. I love it. I love it. And that brings me to my first question for you. You just talked about how you worked ladder matches on the independent scene working against Jeff. What was your first introduction to the concept of the ladder match, and why was it something that you were not fearless of at all?
Uh, our first introduction to the ladder match was most people in pro wrestling's first introduction to the ladder match. WrestleMania 10, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon. And that was a match when we watched it, it truly got a hold on us. I mean, and that's right. We had just started actually wrestling then, so we hadn't been wrestling that long before that. We were very new to the game. We were young, green rookies that were super hungry. And when we saw this ladder match, we're like, oh my God, this is something that we could thrive at. And we just thought it was an amazing spectacle, obviously, because it had a great story, but also it had these amazing stunts, which made these guys. I've always thought pro wrestlers are like living, breathing superheroes because you have these real people that are doing real time stunts in front of you. And it's like the closest to a real life superhero you can get in many, many ways. And there's good guys and bad guys. But now when we saw this ladder match and some of the incredible things they did in it, we're like, wow, these guys are truly, real life superheroes. And that's what we wanted to do. That very much inspired our style, especially as far as wanting to do ladder matches. And knowing that we were smaller guys at that time, we knew that if we could do ladder matches, we could pull off new things that hadn't been done yet. And there was a lot of groundbreaking we could do. We could truly be trailblazers in this. And myself and Jeff, we had some absolutely insane, crazy ladder matches on the independent scene here in North Carolina as Matt Hardy, Surge, versus Will o' the Wisps, Jeff Hardy. A lot of them were never even recorded, but there are some that had been documented, and a lot of those matches were inserted into ideas that happened in the No Mercy 99 ladder match.
I love what you talked about there with pro wrestlers being larger than life superheroes, because I feel like that's a commonality that a lot of people who love pro wrestling draw, that comparison to real life superheroes. And you guys are very much that embodiment when you're up there leaping off ladders. Did you ever articulate that to Scott Hall or to Shawn Michaels in conversations, that this was such an instrumental moment for you and Jeff?
We did tell them this later in time, especially after we got to know them better. And one thing I will say about the Kliq guys, they were always cool with us from the very first day. Quick sidebar story is our very first trip to WWE to be extras, be enhancement talent, was in May of 1994. And the very first night, I was booked to work Nikolai Volkov on live TV. And obviously, I was incredibly nervous. This was going to be like my 10th or 11th match inside of a real regulation ring, not a trampoline or not a half real ring, half trampoline ring. I'd had so few matches, and I'd earned the opportunity to go after working with the Italian Stallion and George South a few times. And my brother had went as well. And at the beginning of the night, I was the only person wrestling. And there was a guy named Keith Davis that wrestled for Stallion. He was going to be wrestling Razor Ramon Scott Hall on one of the pre-tape Raw episodes that was going to air in a few weeks. And then just minutes before this match happened, he ended up freaking out and said, I can't take that finish. I can't take that finish. I can't wrestle. And then Stallion, who was the booker who had brought him, was like, oh my God, well, I definitely want to get one of my guys on there because he's getting, a 66% booking fee from us. He was my inspiration for Big Money Matt, by the way, and the Wee Fee booking deal, Italian Stallion. So he said, hey, I have another guy who is very good. He can take any bump Razor Ramon wants. His name's Jeff Hardy. Hey, Jeff, come over here. Come over here. And Jeff had just got dressed real quick. And they put together this match in like 5 or 10 minutes. And Scott Hall was frustrated that this guy backed out of the match. He was aggravated, and it just seemed like he was ill in general. And he went out there and wrestled my brother. And that happened before my match went on live TV. And I was nervous. But to see my brother, who was 16 years old, who had to lie about his age, which he had to move his birthday back 2 years. He had to lie about his age to go out there, wrestle against Scott Hall, who was already frustrated and aggravated. And literally Scott Hall beat the shit out of him during the course of this whole match. And there was one point where he put him up on his shoulder and drove him into the turnbuckle, and Jeff's knee hit the post and banged up his knee real bad. And then after the match, when Scott had cooled down a little bit, he apologized to Jeff and he felt bad about it. He said, "Thank you so much. You took great bumps for me. You busted your ass. Thank you for working hard." I went out and had my match with Nikolai Volkov. And then the Kliq guys like took a liking to us. And I'll never forget the next day, Jeff said, "I want to quit wrestling. I never want to come back again. I've had enough of this. It's an experience." And he wrestled X-Pac 1-2-3 Kid at that time and had a great match, and it like rejuvenated his love and passion for pro wrestling because he was very frustrated and down from that first night. But long story short, after he wrestled X-Pac, he came back through the second night, and the Kliq guys were looking at him, and X-Pac said, "You know, every time I look at this guy," Jeff had his haircut like Vanilla Ice. He said, "He like reminds me of Vanilla Ice." And Jeff was very motivated by Vanilla Ice at that time. And they said, "Yeah, you're right." And Diesel looked at him and said, "Bump, bump, 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 bump." So every time we would come and be extras, the Kliq guys were always super cool to us. They were always very friendly. If there was a good spot, they would like say, "Hey, put one of the Hardy guys in there. They're really good." You know, Ice and Matt. You know, so that is so funny. He was known as Ice for the longest time ever with that circle of guys.